In this video, we're going to look at some different ways to create strings. So if we declare the data type string, and that gets a capital letter because it's an object in a class, then we could call this one string first. And if I were to try to output, so system out print line, okay, this is not going to work. It won't compile because so far we have just a declaration. We've declared that the variable identifier first will be associated with a string, but that string hasn't been initialized or created yet. We just have a declaration. In order to instantiate that variable or initialize it, we would need to assign it a value. So I could say first equals Robin. Okay. So if I comment out the assignment and all I have is the declaration, when I go to compile, I'm going to get an error that tells me that this variable first, right, has not been initialized. Right, it's not yet been created. If I remove those comments, right, now we've declared and we've assigned the variable a string. Right, now first is a reference to this memory location holding the string that's inside of the quotation marks. So now we should be able to compile and run this program, and it will output the first name. Okay, so we can declare and we can assign on two different lines. Another thing we can do is declare and assign on the same line. Okay, so our string second is going to hold Michelle, that's my middle name. And now I can output second, right? And this will compile and run. We've got our variable declaration and assignment, and there's our output. Okay, the third way that you can create a string, so we'll call this one third, is to use the new keyword. Remember, new is what we do to create a new object. And following the word new, we invoke that class, which is string, to call its constructor. And then the value, so wolf will be my string that I pass to this constructor, goes inside the parentheses, and it'll get passed by parameter to the string class constructor, which will then create the new string. So if I change this to third, now I can compile and run, and it's going to output my third string. Okay, and there it is. Okay, another thing that we can do is we can concatenate. So if I take another string, so we'll call this one string full name. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take my first name, so first plus, and then my second name, so first plus second. Now if I go to output my full name variable, okay, remember this is going to concatenate only what's inside of these quotation marks. So it's going to mush together my first and my second name into this variable full name. If I want to include a space in between, right, then I need to add that space, concatenate it between the first and the second. So now when I compile and run, we should see my first and second name concatenated with a space in between, right? And there that is. Okay, another way that we can add on to a string is I can take my existing full name string, which holds my first and second name. And I can do a plus equals and then tack on the third. So it's first concatenating the first plus a space plus the second. Then I can do a plus equals and tack on the third. Now I'm going to probably want to put a space inside there. So let's do plus equals. Actually, we'll tack that on up here. So we'll add on the space before we add on the third. So we've got our first space, second space, that's the contents of full name. Then full name is going to add the third onto the end, concatenate it onto the end of what had come before. So let's go ahead and run that. Okay, and there's the full name. Okay, you can also assign a string. So let's say this is string, we'll call it string bucket. And you can assign its value to null. So this is different from assigning it a set of letters inside a string literal, right? If I were to put quotation marks around this, see how it's blue? Now it's a string literal holding the characters N-U-L-L. If I get rid of those quotation marks, look how the color changes, right? Now it's purple, and that reserved word null in Java is just indicating that the object is initialized, it's created in memory. It's assigned such, or declared that it's going to only hold a string when it's assigned, but currently that bucket of memory is null, null meaning empty. So if I were to output that variable, so I'm going to output my bucket. Okay, and I'll get rid of this one for a moment. So we'll go ahead and compile and run. And it's going to return or output the word null. Okay, but again, that null is not a string literal, right? It's just saying that that current memory location that we're referencing with the word bucket has nothing in it. It's an empty bucket. Okay, now if I want to fill my bucket, I want to put something in there, I can take my empty bucket and assign it the word fill, okay, and that would replace the null, right, and put the fill into it. So we can go ahead and run that. Okay, and there's my word fill.